Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. We will get right to work here, and we'll open up the hearing for Senate Bill 107. And I will recognize, I'll recognize Senator Carson to introduce it, I think.
It's my turn.
Your turn, all right. Well, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members of the Senate ED&A Committee. For the record, my name is Sharon Carson, and I have the pleasure of representing Senate District 14, comprising the towns of Londonderry, Hudson, and Auburn. And I have for your consideration this morning Senate Bill 107, relative to the general administration of regulatory boards and commissions. Mr. Chair, the proposed language of 107 seeks to amend RSA 33(2)G, which pertains to the general administration of regulatory boards and commissions that oversees occupations, trades, professions, and businesses regulated under Title 30, ranging from health practitioners such as doctors, nurses, and mental health professionals to technical fields such as accountancy, engineers, and real estate brokers. A key element of these boards and commissions is balancing the responsibility of safeguarding the health, safety, and welfare of the public with that of protecting the licensed and certified individuals under their charge. Additionally, professional boards seek to encourage growth within their profession by ensuring entry into the workforce isn't encumbered by unnecessary rules, regulations, and policies that create barriers to entry. Currently, two sections of 332G address how boards should approach cases where an individual conviction in the past is preventing someone from pursuing a career in their desired profession. Under 332G:10, boards are prohibited from denying entry into a profession based on a past criminal conviction unless there is substantial and direct relationship to the conviction and the profession. Under 332G:13, an individual may petition a board at any time to determine whether that person's criminal record would disqualify the person from obtaining state recognition in practicing in their desired field. Under this statute, an individual would be precluded from practicing if their criminal conviction was for a felony or violent misdemeanor and public safety outweighs the individual's right in their desired profession. At the heart of this matter, Mr. Chair, and the heart of the bill is the recognition that the language in 332G:10 and 332G:13 create different standards as to how a board or commission must approach an individual with criminal convictions in their past. Currently, it is possible to achieve different outcomes, not only for similarly situated individuals, but for the same individual, depending on where they are in the process and which standard is applied. The proposed language reconciles the language of the conflicting statutes, maintaining the substantial and direct relationship between occupation and conviction for applicants, as well as requirements for boards to demonstrate that denial, suspension, or revocation of a license serves the purpose of protecting the public safety. Other protections, for example, the right to petition a board at any time to see if a criminal conviction would disqualify a person from practicing in their chosen profession, timeframes around when a board must respond to such requests, and appeal rights are retained under the newly proposed 332G:10. This bill combines and clarifies the language of 332G in a way that continues to protect the public, but also ensures fairness to professionals by providing a consistent standard to be applied across all boards and commissions and to all individuals. Other language in Senate Bill 107 is cleanup or clarifying language that does the following. It creates a carve-out under 332G:3 for boards under the OPLC because those boards, while still possessing the ability to retain experts and legal counsel, do so through the executive director. It amends 332G:8 to clarify the time frame for which a board or commission has to conclude hearings or disciplinary actions against the licensee, and it repeals 332G5 relative to the right to appeal final decisions before the Electricians Board, which was moved to 310A:1. Mr. Chair, I will not go on because there's a lot of information here. Also, there is an amendment that I received. It is amendment number 0522S that addresses issues that came up. I would also like to point out this language did come from OPLC, and it's really part of the ongoing process to really streamline and to have consistency. So the boards are all treated the same and the procedures are pretty much all the same. So at this point, Mr. Chair, I will conclude my testimony. There are folks here from OPLC that will be able to answer your questions. Thank you.
For your testimony. So the amendment, just for my clarification, the amendment you sent is further language from OPLC that addressed an issue that was within
Yes.
the bill? Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, we will call Douglas Osterhout and John Garrigan from OPLC. Hopefully I got your name right. It was pretty bad. Well, we'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee, for letting us speak. My name is Douglas Osterhout. I am Osterhout.
Okay.
I am General Counsel for OPLC. With me is John Garrigan. John, I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is John Garrigan. I'm the Chief Administrative Prosecutor and Chief of the Prosecutions Bureau at OPLC.
So this bill was made at the request of OPLC, and it actually stems from a real situation that we came across last summer. So currently under 332G10, and Senator Carson went over this pretty well, a board can only deny an individual if their past prior convictions are related to the work and the profession. There's got to be a substantial relation. And the issue we came across is under 332G13, at any time an individual can petition the board to see if their past criminal conviction would preclude them from practicing in that profession. The problem is that the standards are actually different. Under 332G13, you have to have a felony or a violent misdemeanor in your past, and that would preclude. So what we ended up with is a situation where you could actually make an appeal to the board, ask them to make a ruling under 332G13. They could give you the green light, and then when you get to the actual application process, the standard is different, and under 332G10, you could actually be denied. And this is after you've paid for that education, this is after you've done the training, taken whatever tests you need. And the other thing about 332G13, I haven't witnessed this, but it could happen, is that it says you can make that petition to the board at any time. So theoretically, you could file an application, have that 332G10 standard be applied simultaneously, petition the board under 13, and because the standards are different, get two different answers for the same individual. So what we're trying to do is make the rulings consistent when the thing comes before the board, the petition, the request, whatever it may be, just consistent rulings, fairness for the individuals. A lot of the language, we asked to strike G13, and we moved a lot of that language up. If you just take a look at we can compare the language. But basically, we did that clear and convincing evidence standard because we are talking about people's professions. We want this to be sort of a high standard. It keeps the substantial language from 10, and it keeps the, that weighing between the public's interest, public health and safety, and the individual's right to work. Hopefully the best of both worlds, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's the crux of it. There is some other language in there. I noticed we added a definition, I believe, of state recognition, because that term was used but undefined. And then as Senator Carson said, a lot of the other language is just clarifying or cleanup language. Happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Did you have anything more you wanted to add, or?
No, thank you.
No? All right. Any questions from the committee? I think I got it. Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. So with reference to the genesis of this particular piece of legislation, are you saying that somebody went through, had received information that they might be able to go forward, and then subsequently went through whatever the processes are to be, to get licensed in some profession, and then were denied because of a previous conviction?
That specific thing, I'm not aware happened. I think
But is that the,
yeah, that was
is
sort of the
that kind of
genesis of it. The
why this
question-
needs to be?
Correct, and the question was, I think even the question was posed, is an application a petition under 332G13? And that sort of, everyone, that was the light bulb going off for everyone. And the other thing too is, I think I ran this, just scenarios by 10 different attorneys, including DOJ attorneys, and I think it was like a 6-4 split. So it really wasn't clear how to handle those types of situations. So we're hoping this clarifies and creates consistency.
Follow up?
Yes, could you clarify a 6-4 split on who understood the current
On-
statute to mean, the interpretations, you
The
mean?
interpretations.
I see,
Yeah.
I
Which
see.
standard would apply in which instances?
I see. One last question?
Oh.
Yeah. One last question. So, this would justify both sections and still offer the space to disqualify somebody if they have a violent misdemeanor?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all I have on the testimony sheet. Anybody else that would like to speak on this bill before I close the hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 107. Exact that?
We could probably, but, I mean, when we go to exec, this is,
We can do it right now. if you
do
want.
you want to?
Are you guys okay with this bill? All right, I'll accept the motion to exec.
So moved.
Motion to go into exec and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Would you like to make a
Mr.
motion?
Chair, I'm going to move amendment number 0522S.
You want to move the bill?
You can move the
I'll
bill.
move the bill on to pass, I'm sorry.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. And you want to move an amendment?
Okay, so I would like to move, thank you, Mr. Chair. 0522S, amendment to 107.
Do we have a second? Second. Moved and seconded. You want to speak to your?
This is just some further refinement, Mr. Chair, of the language in the bill, and that's all it is.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would you like to,
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we adopt Senate Bill 107, ought to pass as amended.
do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Gendro. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay,
That
I make a
passes.
motion for the consent
Mo-
calendar?
Motion for consent,
So moved.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Senator Carson, you will take this out?
Yeah?
All right.
Okay. I will do-
I'll accept the motion to go back out of exec.
So moved.
Second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right on time.
Who's taking it out?
Senator Carson is, yes. Right, okay. Sorry, I think it's high.
Thank you.
There you are. Is Senator Birdsell coming down to introduce this bill?
I hope so. She is?
Okay.
Would you want to just introduce it so we can move
Yep.
on? And then
So-
if she comes in, we can
Yep.
let her speak to it? Okay. All right, we're going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 148, and I'm going to ask Senator Carson to introduce the bill for the committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, fellow EDNA members.
There she is.
Do you want me to continue, or?
Nope, why don't we let Senator Birdsell
Okay.
introduce this, since she's here? Thank you, Senator Carson. I call on Senator Birdsell. We were actually on time.
That's a first.
I know.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee, for hearing my bill, and it is 148.
Yes.
362 was the last bill from last year, and this is basically a bill that I put in last year, and I have, I understand that the Mechanics Board, last year they had agreed to start making changes through the board. They hadn't done it as of the time that the bill was put in. My understanding is they just came out with, I believe, rules for the plumbing apprentice position. So for the time being, I would ask that you re-refer so that if it's not started to get implemented by the fall, then we can review this.
All right, very well. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one person signed up to testify, Bill Trombley from PFGF HVAC. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Bill Trombley. I'm a master plumber in Manchester. I was going to here to speak in favor of this bill, but I think it was being asked to be referred that rules were written, and I'm aware of those rules being written. So either it can be done in rules or in law. Or either way, the Gas Fitters Association is wholeheartedly in favor of this bill or the rule change.
Okay, so you'd have no objection if we re-refer it and let the rules process continue through?
Yeah, no objection to that.
Okay, thank
I
you.
know they've been working on it for the last few months, so.
Sure. Any other questions from the committee? Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to speak on Senate Bill 148? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to go into executive session.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we re-refer Senate Bill 148.
Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Any-
opposed?
I'm so used to doing this.
It's okay. Put your fingers up.
No, no. I'll get it. You're
I
gonna have to.
think I figured out what this
You guys
gavel
are
is
gonna
for.
have to get me. You're gonna have to cut me a break here.
It's okay.
So,
Anybody move consent?
I'll move consent, Mr. Chair.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
And as penance, I'll take this one to the floor.
All right. I think you're gonna get all of them all day long.
Yeah, I know. I'm just.
We have a few minutes. We can move in and exec some of these other bills. So I sent out a list yesterday to the committee. I hope you all received it. I know it was a little late in the afternoon. Do have to make a couple of, or two changes to the list. Senate Bill 87, I realize we have the wrong amendment and we're trying to get the correct one drafted, so I'm gonna move that off from today's exec list. It's because we do not have the correct amendment. And Senate Bill 44, I've spoken with Senator Carson since I did the list, and she said that one is ready to go, so we'd like to do that one right now?
Sure.
All right,
I mean,
so we'll start with that one. That'll be in addition to the list.
so, Mr. Chair, I would like to move Senate Bill 44 ought to pass.
All right, Senator Carson moves
And I'm
out to
looking
pass. Do I have a second?
Looking for my bill.
Senator Gendro seconds.
204. Nope, that's not it. I can't find my bill. Oh, well.
I got it right here if you
There
need.
is an amendment that everyone should have received. That amendment is the work product. As if you remember from the public hearing, there was disagreement in that bill. And so we had requested that the parties get together and resolve the bill. And so this is, the amendment is the result of their compromise. So that's what I have.
Is this the correct amendment you're looking at?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, 0408S. Oh, you know, it's right here.
Got it? All
Yeah,
right.
I got it, okay. Because I had clicked them all together. Okay.
So would you like to move the amendment?
Yes, I would like to move amendment 0408S.
Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. I recognize you to speak to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this, there was some dissension amongst the groups with this bill, and that really came out during the public hearing. And so I had asked the groups to please get together and resolve this issue. They were led by Jake Berry from New Futures, and so the amendment that we have here is a result of their compromise.
Awesome. Any further discussion?
So, I just have a question.
Senator Perkins Wolken?
Okay, so I'm just looking this over, Senator, but maybe you could just speak to the aspect. I know one concern was that obviously we wanted to create continuity of care for our patients, but there was concern over providers that were not duly licensed. So I wondered if you could just, if
Okay.
you are able to, just address whether this new language makes alterations to the dual licensing requirement.
Okay, I'm looking at.
Me too.
Because I'm like, wasn't ready to do this. Facility, I think what they did, again, and it is in the original bill, is putting in mental health, and that stayed over, but I think what they really were looking at was alcohol and other drug professionals on the original bill. Page 2, beginning on line 8. They really fleshed this out, having minimum 60-hour master's degree or advanced standing master's degree in clinical mental health, clinical psychology, substance use, treatment, social work, with clinical internship and coursework in assessment, diagnosis, treatment, use, and mental health disorders. And that was in section 1. Section 2, it looks like they just adopted that same language, and they still kept in the criminal justice. And so by making that change, I believe that it fleshed that section out a little more, and everybody agreed to do that and replace that language.
Okay, all right, that's helpful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Altshuler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Carson, there was a considerable discussion during the original hearing about, on page 2 of the original bill, alcohol and other drug use professionals. I'm looking on the amendment, and it looks like it's starting on line 31 of page 1, but then when it flips over, I don't see how that is. I'm missing how that's written out.
Okay, so what they're doing here in the amendment is amending the bill by replacing all after the enacting clause.
Right.
So they're keeping, they had to do, they added in a section dealing with advertise because that is not there.
Yeah.
You have continuum of care, occurring disorders, and then it goes on to facilities and goes on to other things. So they did do a section on advertising to advertise, and they put in or a certified recovery support worker because we had some testimony concerning that. They did keep the continuum of care, occurring disorders, and then it goes down to alcohol and other drug use professionals. And they put in, I believe they put in recovery as well, because we did have testimony about the recovery workers, so they've included them. And they did, let's see, have language on the facility as well, and again, that included the language of recovery, and it goes on beginning on the amendment on line 19, and it says, and which is licensed, certified, or otherwise overseen and approved to be licensed, to catch those folks that were working in other types of facilities. So again, that was something that was they had discussed.
Sorry, where is that?
That is, I'm
On line
looking
nine-
at, I'm looking at
Page
the
one, line
amendment.
19, on the amendment.
Oh.
I'm looking at the amendment.
No, okay, I'm on page
Yep.
2.
Okay. And substance use disorder, is, I think, another section. They did have, they did give you a definition of substance use disorder, which begins on page 2, is a new inclusion. And then section 7, alcohol and other drug professionals, still includes the mental health. And it goes on to the performance of clinical evaluations in, on line 12, section A, to, this includes, they did include the severity assessment and assessment of dangerousness to self or others, which was appropriate. And then, again, another section, and I'm looking at new language beginning on line 20, crisis prevention and intervention to include enlisting the support of trained personnel to manage risk of harm to others, which they felt was important. Then you have section 3, and then on lines 23 and 24, with and without the context or treatment of substance use disorder. And that has to do with the co-occurring disorder counseling. So I think they went through, there are some other, 2 other changes beginning in section 8. That says, beginning on line 30, with clinical internship and coursework and assessment, diagnosis, and treatment of substance use and mental health disorders. And then on page 3, in section section 2, beginning on line 1, past testing procedures of a nationally recognized credentialing entity specified for the board. Such procedures shall be based on the core functions and practice dimensions of a substance use and co-occurring disorders counseling. So these are the folks that work in this field. I don't pretend that I know exactly what they really do, but I thought it was important that we get all the professionals that work in the field, and this is what they've agreed to.
And they expanded the
Yeah,
requirements, which is what goes to my question. Okay, I'm good with that.
Further discussion?
yeah, I just want to, were you at this meeting?
No,
Oh, okay. Is anyone here that might have been?
no, I don't
No,
think so.
okay. My concern was that we had and I have a lot of notes, that we had quite a discussion on the original bill of page 2, section 6, starting on 18, but I have a big circle on line 20 for criminal justice as a bachelor's degree program, and I see it added in here.
Right.
And the discussion was that that's not necessarily, that there are not SUD components to the traditional criminal justice degrees, and that additional training or additional review of a specific criminal justice degree would have to be taken into account, because that's not something that's normally covered. So I guess my question is that, can you move forward with just what's in section B, or is it necessary, do they have to also incorporate page 2, lines 28 through 34, which is the 300 hours of alcohol and drug use education in a master's program, or 300 hours supervised practical training?
Well, thank you for the question, Senator.
Yeah,
I think if you look on line 21 of the bill as introduced on page 2,
Yep.
and then on page 3 of the amendment, it does say
Page 3.
or equivalent program. And it just has to be from an accredited college. They have to obtain the 300 hours of alcohol and drug use education with the degree granting program, or separately complete 4,000 hours of supervised work experience and completed 3 hours of supervised practical training within the degree granting program. So that's where you can have someone who has a criminal justice degree, but they can't they can't be part of these programs until they complete all those other aspects of it. And I believe, I don't know if it was testimony, but we have, believe it or not, quite a few police officers that have degrees in psychology and social work. So this just really lays it all out for everybody, what those requirements are. And they include criminal justice, because oftentimes our police officers are the first person that come into contact with someone that is struggling with addiction. So it makes sense to be able to include them.
Okay, thank you for clarifying section B.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Hooray.
All in favor of
The
moving the amendment? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Senator Carson, would you
Okay.
like to make
Yes,
another motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move Senate Bill 44FN as amended.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Gendro. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries.
Okay, I'll move consent.
Do I have a second? Moved and seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Who wants to take this one? out?
Yeah.
You want another one?
It's my bill, I might as
All right,
well.
Senator Carson will take it out.
It's
I'll accept the motion to move out of exec.
So moved.
Seconded?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And with that, it's now after 9:30. We can open up the hearing on Senate Bill 208. I'm going to give the committee just a second to get their paperwork shifted back, and then I will recognize you, Senator, to introduce it. Everybody ready?
Yep.
All right, Senator Chandler, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Shannon Chandley, and I am privileged to represent Senate District 11, which is Amherst, Merrimack, Milford, and Wilton. I come before you today to introduce SB 208, a simple but important bipartisan bill. Transparency is essential to trust in government. Over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, the state received significant funds from the federal government. I'm grateful to the federal delegation for securing those funds, the very needed dollars at that time, and to the state for dispersing them. One thing that remains to be seen is a detailed, clear accounting of how those funds have been spent. Ultimately, the funding we received from the federal government came from taxpayers, and those same taxpayers deserve transparency, clarity, and information about where those dollars go. As the governor noted in his budget address, one of our greatest responsibilities is to steward taxpayer dollars. Currently, the data that is reported and shared publicly is very limited in scope, with little detailed information. For example, the current report simply speaks to the funds that have been accepted and what programs they are for, but not as to what has been spent or to whom the contract has been assigned. In order to give taxpayers transparency, I ask you to support SB 208. SB 208 requires the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative Services and the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery to separately report on the disbursement of federal funds. Beginning on July 1st, 2023, the department shall create and make available on their public website a report of all federal relief funds dispersed within 30 days of each disbursement. This report shall be in check register format and include the amount, date, person, or other entity to whom the disbursement was made, as well as the accounting unit, class code of disbursement, the title and number of the expense account, and a brief description of each disbursement. Also beginning July 1st, 2023, the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery, established by Executive Order 2020-06, shall create and make available on its public internet website a report of all federal relief funds disbursed within 30 days of disbursement. And that report should be done in the same manner as the department's report. You know, I think that we can all agree that transparency over spending of taxpayer dollars is incredibly important, and it is a way for us to ensure to our constituents that we are accountable for the funds they entrust to us. I ask the committee to support these efforts and to look favorably on SB 208. I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Senator. I have one, and then I will go to Senator Carson. So, currently, what's happening now? Is there any reporting of these funds that are going out now?
There is reporting, and it looks like this, which I know you can't see from here because it's tiny, and it's dense, and it's not terribly detailed. It's sort of, it's up to a point, and that is why I think that we need additional reporting, just so that we can see what happened past this point.
Okay, so this wouldn't, there's no one from the department that's going to testify, at least not on the sheets. So this wouldn't put an undue burden on them then to try and meet this because they're doing it already?
I certainly don't think so. Yes, they have, this information is available, and they've got the infrastructure to do it.
Okay, Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for including the language on 8 and 9 about the right to know ombudsman. It's a new office. We have a right to know ombudsman, and he's working very diligently. But I think we've got to let the people know that this office is available to them if they have any questions about the right to know process. And just thank you for putting it in there.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you, Senator.
Any further questions? Senator Gendro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Chanley. The question I would have, and it may not have anything to do with it, but is a violation of privacy for the individual or the businesses if this information were released?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much.
Senator Susie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Donna Susie. I represent Senate District 18, comprised of 5 wards in the city of Manchester and the town of Litchfield. And I'm here as a co-sponsor of Senate Bill 208 because I think it's an important bill concerning transparency and accountability. Throughout the course of my time as a legislator, this body has worked tirelessly to ensure that Granite Staters have access to how taxpayer dollars are being spent on their behalf. And although I think we've made great strides as a state in making this information more accessible, more transparent, one area that needs more work and more transparency is the spending of ARPA funds, which are the federal funds that have come forward. Due in large part to our federal delegation, who were able to secure for us approximately $994.6 million through the course of the pandemic. Nearly $1 billion of new money was forwarded to us. This money has allowed our state to fund many vital programs. I think there are, certainly items in the governor's budget that was just presented that will utilize these funds. And I just think it's important that we continue on our path towards transparency and accountability to the taxpayers to also make the use of these dollars easily known to the taxpayers. As I said, our federal delegation, Senators Shaheen and Hassan, Congresswoman Custer, Congressman Pappas did a lot of work to secure this money. The money then comes into the state, and the governor has been able to direct funds to particular programs and projects throughout the state. But the information, as Senator Chanley stated, is still somewhat murky. I mean, we know that the fiscal committee does receive a report. The LBA currently provides it. It's on the status of federal funds being received. But the report lacks some of the significant detail of how much is appropriated, where exactly that money is spent, and even more importantly, I think for us as legislators, what is left of those funds? So, for example, a round number of $90 million is put into a grant-funded program. To the extent that there are dollars left over, we as legislators need to know that, particularly during our budgeting process, for two important reasons. One is that there is a time frame. There is a deadline on utilizing some of these funds, and some of them are use it or lose it. It also, I think, would inform us, if we had more detail, why some of the money hasn't been doled out. Is it that the program established is too complicated? Are people applying for the funds having difficulties? I mean, we know some of the programs were just amazing, like, the protection for our businesses, where people were able to go to a bank or apply easily in most cases. But that process really worked well. And I think if we knew how the dollars were spent and what's left over, that we would have a better understanding of whether what we have is working well, and in addition, be mindful of those time frames. Certainly, as I said in the governor's budget address, he did talk about utilization of some of these dollars for one-time projects. And I happen to agree with them. I think that's a good idea, but I think we need a little bit more detail before we can get to that stage. So I think Senate Bill 208 will bring clarity and transparency to how the executive branch has used the federal dollars so far, and require the Department of Administrative Services and the Gopher office to separately report on the disbursement. So with that, I'd conclude my testimony, and I thank you for your time and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions? Senator Gendro.
Thank you. I don't know if it's a question or a comment, Senator Susie, but I'm a selectman in Littleton, and I know we were given ARPA funds. And the requirement to spend, of course, first to accept them and then to expend them were very limited. There were only like 4 categories, maybe, or 5 categories that we could use that money for. Now, are you saying with this that you would want each town to, like a 91A, to come back and say, all right, you've received $2 million, what did you spend your ARPA funds on? Is that what you're thinking at I know we got the state level, but then from a town by town, are we requiring our towns to also be transparent?
Well,
does that make sense? I don't know if it's a question or a statement.
No, thank you for that question, Senator. I do understand what you're saying. I think this bill is specific to state funds.
Okay.
I do think it's important at the local level that the Board of Selectmen, the Town Council, the mayors also be held to a similar standard, but this bill addressed state funds.
Okay. All right,
Only
good. Thank
this
you.
time.
Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Susie, for taking my question. If this were enacted beginning July 21, 2023, does the state still have time to use the ARPA funds without losing them, so we can reassess if there are programs that it originally went to and they're not using it, find out why, and be able to backtrack so that we don't have to send the money back? I mean, does that give us enough wiggle room to adapt? I think is that the word I'm going to adapt. Yeah.
I believe for most of the funds it does, Senator. I do know there are different stipulations on the different types of funds that were provided, and I'm not expert in the deadline for each of them, but I know it's fairly imminent, and I know that during our budgeting process, we could use this information to glean. So, I mean, to the committee's wisdom, if the committee wants to advance the date, that's certainly within your purview, but I think it's a reasonable time period.
Excellent. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, we thank you for coming in and
Thank
testifying.
you very much.
That's all I have on the sheets. Anybody else want to testify before I close the hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 208. Now we are right on time. Look at that. All right. Good morning, Senator Whitley.
Good morning. I'm
So
back.
we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 209, and I will recognize Senator Whitley to introduce it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. It's good to be back in front of you. For the record, my name is Becky Whitley, and I'm honored to represent Senate District 15, which includes the communities of Bow, Concord, Pennacook, and Hopkinton. Today, I'm proud to introduce to you Senate Bill 209, a bill ensuring menstrual equity in all of New Hampshire's correctional settings. Yesterday, you got to talk about nibblefish. Today, you get to talk about periods. How exciting. So at its core, this bill is really just about basic human dignity for women who are in our county jails and our state prisons. This bill acknowledges that for those who are behind bars, there are sometimes unnecessary hurdles to coping with menstruation and managing periods in a healthy and hygienic way. So I'm very grateful to have worked with a commissioner from the Department of Corrections to ensure that this language lines up with her current policy and that it also ensures the safety of the residents and staff. And I'm grateful to her in making sure that we understand what it's really like to run her facility. So we also consulted with the county superintendents, got their input, and I really want to thank them for their partnership in this work. This bill is really important, and and this subject is really important because menstruation is natural, right? It's a natural monthly occurrence experienced by half of the population for much of our lives. It should not be treated any differently than any other basic bodily function. Menstruation is not something to be ashamed of. However, there is so much stigma and silence around the topic. Menstrual products like tampons and pads are vital for the health, well-being, and full participation of women and girls. Inadequate menstrual support is associated with both health and psychosocial issues, particularly among low-income women. The lack of access to menstrual products can also take a severe emotional toll, especially if prisoners or residents are too embarrassed to take part in daily life within the prison. Incarcerated people are in the custody of the state and rely entirely on prison or jail staff to meet their medical and hygiene needs, including the provision of menstrual products. The ability to manage menstruation should not be a bonus, a reward, an entitlement, or a favor to be begged or bargained for. That's where this bill comes in. This bill takes away that power dynamic and provides for the provision of the same basic amount of menstrual products for all residents. There's also flexibility built in depending on an individual's unique needs. The women on this panel know full well that periods can be unpredictable and that not all women menstruate in the same way. Some women have light flows for a few days while others have heavier flows for a full week. I want to point out that the cost of menstrual products is really negligible compared to the cost of actually running these facilities, and that the government already pays for other necessities like toilet paper. We don't charge for toilet paper, so we shouldn't be charging for menstrual products. This bill highlights that the fact that this is a core human need, even and most especially for those in government custody, and should be treated as such, period. I'm happy to take any questions. I know there are folks behind me that can speak more to their own experience, and I respectfully ask for the committee's support of SB 209. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions? Senator General.
Thank you. It's not so much, I guess, a question as a comment.
Yeah.
To me, this seems like such a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And it grieves me to think that this hasn't been happening.
Yeah, I think, there is a policy that's very similar to this in the Department of Corrections, and so we aren't seeing complaints, but I think, we are lucky to have Commissioner Hanks, and it's important to have this sort of this right in statute rather than just in policy. I think there's inconsistent reports coming out of our county jails. Some county jails are doing this great. Women are getting what they need. We have heard that some are not. Each county runs its own facility, and so we need to ensure that this is just commonplace continuity across all counties. So thanks for that question.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none?
Thank
Senator,
you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanks. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning. For the record, Helen Hanks, Commissioner of the Department of Corrections. And I thank Senator Whitley for collaborating with the department and others on this bill. Just to give some history, for greater than a decade biannually, the department is asked if we provide this service to biologically menstruating persons, and we have. We have for greater than a decade. It has been an issue across the country in creating consistency and assuring that it is, as Senator Whitley articulated, a natural course of the correctional operations setting only makes sense in this particular arena. So we are certainly here in support. This balances both what we know biologically, but also what we know in correctional operations. And I will spare the Senate any details of adverse uses of these products, but I think that this bill helps us delicately manage those outliers. Simply here to affirm, yes, the Department of Corrections has done this for a long time, and we're happy to see it in statute. And if I can assist with any questions, I'm certainly available to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. It sounds like you're doing a great job. We appreciate it. Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Commissioner. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
So I'm just curious. Say someone starts their period, do they go to the nursing staff? How do they get these products? Can you explain that?
They're readily available physically on the unit for people just to access in varieties. So we have various strengths, various types of products, and the officer is there and they're available. We don't want it to be a can I have, it's there. The officer's there monitoring the supply. In addition to offering free products, which we've always done, we also offer additional varying products through our commissary. So if a woman doesn't like what we have but wants something else, they can both use those and buy something else.
Okay, may I follow up, Mr.
Follow.
Chair?
Yep.
Thank you. So it's not a case of a woman having to go and say, you know, I need to get these products, and having someone in charge say, well, I can't get them for you right now, or, you know what I mean? It's kind of can be a very difficult situation. I think some women might feel a little uncomfortable and they don't want to be humiliated or anything else. So I'm just concerned about that dynamic of having to ask to get this. I mean, my goodness, you know, if you're in a relationship with somebody, you say, hey, can you go to the store and get this for me? I go, no, I don't want to do that. So I don't want women to be put into a very uncomfortable position of having to beg to get a product that they need. They have no control over this whatsoever. And to have it be used in a kind of a very difficult situation. So I think this legislation will help that. So I'll support it. But I think maybe we can continue to work on this and have it done a little better dynamic for the women.
Yeah, Senator Carson, your points are well made, and that's not the nature of the environment we operate. And I think the whole intent of this bill is to make sure that's not the case in all correctional settings in the state of New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Further questions? Senator Altshuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Hanks. And I thank you for setting a standard for our county facilities to be able to emulate. And I think following Senator Carson's colloquy on accessing, I would just like to hear as a clarification from you for how the state is doing this at the state level, what might be an appropriate way to do it at the county level, particularly wanting to make sure that on lines 8 and 9, with sufficiency shall be considered, and I think the key words there are at minimum a combination of 20 standard issue menstrual hygiene products per individual's menstrual cycle. I understand that the state does not keep a tally and tick it off every time someone accesses what they need to comfortably move, well, at least get through. Not comfortably, it might be a little generous here.
But it's actually a fair comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Wow. Yeah, nobody likes
we
that.
want women to be comfortable during that period.
Yeah,
of time.
as comfortable as possible, but also want to make sure that if I hear you correctly, at the state level, which should be considered a model, that at the county level, it's a minimum and not to be considered an allocation of 20, and then you are put in the position of having to possibly have to ask for more. Yeah, I saw that number and I was like, well, that's 3 days, but all right.
I do want to comment. I have colleagues, county superintendents who have been doing this right all along. I think this is for the outliers not doing it right. And because I know that there are county superintendents that have taken this with the right appropriate delicacy and responsiveness, so they deserve that credit as well. The at a minimum literally was a negotiated placeholder for those that are not, and I can just again assure you that if a biologically menstruating person needs more, we give them more. And really, women have choice both with the free products and through the commissary products. So really at this point, the language in here you see on lines 21 and 22 is because in some cases we do have to say, you have a lot of stuff in here and this is a fire hazard, and let's just try to manage this differently. And again, I will spare you some more egregious events because I don't think they're relevant to the discussion. So I hope that helps just assure you that the intent is to do the right thing.
Thank you.
You're
Further
welcome.
questions? Thank you.
Nibblefish.
Nibblefish. I think I'm going to. I think I'm going back to nibblefish.
I had to go, what is that? I'm not a nibblefish kind of lady.
I do think we need to look at our chair. He did a great job. He kept a straight face.
I know.
And we learned a lot today.
You said it well.
I'm learning more than I thought I ever would.
As a mother of two boys, I've said, listen, when your future spouse says they need these things, you just do it without shame or blame. You just go ahead and support. And I think that's what we're trying to do
I
here.
thankfully grew up in a family with 5 sisters.
There you go. Yeah. You have stories to tell.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Devin Quinn from the New Hampshire Women's Foundation. I'm assuming you don't want to talk about nibblefish. Turn on your mic, please. Turn on your mic, please. Thank you.
Thanks. Chairman Pearl and members of the committee, my name is Devin Quinn. I'm the Director of Policy for the New Hampshire Women's Foundation, where we invest in equality and opportunity for the women and girls of New Hampshire through research, education, advocacy, and grant making. And we are in strong support of this bill because anyone who menstruates while in state or county correctional facilities should have access to free, timely, and appropriate menstrual hygiene products without concern for safety or stigma. And 209 would bring all county jails up to the successful standards set by the state women's prisons and other county correctional facilities. Certainly, as Senator Whitley mentioned, there are certain general expectations of living conditions in correctional facilities for basic hygiene and health. This is why there is no law about toilet paper, but the expectation is that there's toilet paper. And so certainly we want to make sure that the basic necessities are met for people who menstruate as well. And as previously mentioned, when the Women's Foundation started looking into this issue, we found that the women's prison does a really great job about this. They have a policy, and more importantly, they implement the policy really well. And individuals can get their needs met, and they can decide between products, tampons, pads, liners. We also learned that many county correctional facilities also do this really well. They may implement it differently that suits their needs, but you'll also hear from Superintendent Brackett, who will talk about how they do it really well too. So this is really about making sure all county correctional facilities meet this standard when we talk about doing it well. Senator Carson, you said it perfectly that there is a dynamic between officers or staff and people who are incarcerated. And that can be a power dynamic that can feel stigmatizing or shameful, but it can also lead to or a feeling that it might be used as an abuse of power. And so we don't want anyone to making a request under a power dynamic that is implicit in a correctional facility can feel shameful, or we have heard in other prisons across the country that it's a dangerous thing. So 22 other states have laws related to menstrual hygiene products. We would be joining them. And as I peruse through some of the good ones or the better ones that different states have, The ones that are ideal specify that the products are free, which this does, and defines products as pads, tampons, and liners, because you want to make sure that they have access to pads or tampons. And if you just say products, they could say, okay, here's just pads. And so having that choice is defining it is important. And then also prohibiting staff applying conditions or access to them. And so we kind of did that through the process of this. So I just want to point out a couple things in the language of this that Senator Altshuler, you made a very good point that we set the minimum number to 20. And other states say sufficient amounts, but honestly, the word sufficiency is debatable. And what a corrections officer who does not menstruate sees as sufficient might be very different than what someone else sees as sufficient. So we didn't want to set it up for a debate every time about sufficiency. So we wanted to put in a number, 20, based off what we heard was working at the state prison, but also very specifically say at a minimum. So there was always a clue that it could always be more than that. It also says, confirms that they're not expected to pay for menstrual hygiene products. As you heard, there is commissary options for different types of products if someone wants to pay for different types of products, but it should be free. And then we, Commissioner Hanks and Superintendent Brackett, will tell you about the concerns that are beyond my understanding of what they have to manage and navigate. And so we think that there are some good lines in here that provide guardrails on inappropriate use, that provide for meeting the needs of incarcerated people and meeting the needs of the correctional facility. I also have a letter here from Dr. Ruth James. I sent it around to you, but I'll just read a couple of lines from it. It says, quote, "I'm a family physician with prior experience serving incarcerated individuals in Rockingham, Belknap, and Carroll County, New Hampshire. I presently collaborate with individuals at a community health center in Hillsborough County, New Hampshire." She goes on to say, quote, "Incarcerated individuals are a vulnerable population. Individuals who menstruate while incarcerated are at particular risk from both a physical and mental standpoint. Without sufficient access to menstrual management products, creative use and reuse of both menstrual products and other available items can lead to injury. One such example is toxic shock syndrome, and though rare, this complication of bacterial infection is life-threatening." So I wanted to add the medical perspective as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you agree with me that probably one of the most important things coming out about this is having a woman maintain a sense of dignity? I think that that's an important part about this bill. And I was glad to see that Dr. James had mentioned the word dignity. I would imagine being incarcerated, you do lose some of that, but this is the one thing that maybe can help someone maintain a sense of dignity while they're incarcerated. So I hope you can agree with me that this is an important word here.
I agree. I have nothing to add because that was very well put.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Chris Brackett. You did not indicate whether you were opposed or in favor, but
I'm in favor.
okay.
Good morning. My name is Chris Brackett. I'm the superintendent of the Stratford County Department of Corrections, and I'm here to testify about my experience with operating a county correctional facility. It's located in Dover, New Hampshire. My experience with menstruation products is that we allow access at any time for those that need them, biologically the need for them, inside the housing unit in which they're located. I recognize that it is important to maintain a sense of dignity for those that are in custody, for females that are in custody around this subject. I am in no way a subject matter expert, but I have consulted with those that are subject matter experts on this, and I believe that having access to these items without having to ask is something that is important. There are security concerns that come along with it. As you know, we have struggled with substance use disorder, and introduction of contraband inside facilities is a problem. It's a problem inside my facility. And oftentimes we have found that these boxes that maxi pads come in, or the tubes that tampons come in, become a venue for hiding something. So it creates an additional area that we need to search. That's our job, and we're going to do that. But the definition of sufficiency becomes a question. Recognizing now, after consultation with my wife, that it needs to be sufficient to the individual, because individuals have different experiences. I fully recognize that. I've had discussions with my fellow superintendents. I sit as the president of the superintendent's affiliate. We've openly discussed this in meetings, and we feel as though it is something that needs to happen, that access needs to be allowed to those that biologically require it. I think that this bill is something that the counties are doing right now, and it just kind of solidifies that if there are discrepancies with operations within the county, it'll kind of hold their feet to the fire. I'm a realist, and I will tell you right now that I suspect that there are times in which someone who requires these products inside my facility has to ask for them. And that's going to happen from time to time. But if we can institute practices and policies or laws that will allow them to have access, then I think that we're making a step in the right direction. It's something that, as Senator Whitley said, half the population have to endure. And not understanding the trials and tribulations that come with that, I think that it's important for us as administrators of correctional facilities to be able to provide that, so a level of dignity that Senator Carson remarked about remains intact.
Thank you. You navigated that testimony very well. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ophelia. I'm sorry, Ophelia, I can't quite read your last name, so I'll let you.
It's Burnett.
Burnett, all right, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for taking my testimony. My name is Ophelia Burnett, and I am the Healing Justice Organizer with American Friends Service Committee. I'm also a directly impacted individual, so I advocate both for individuals that are currently and formerly incarcerated as well. I'm here to speak on behalf of SB 209. When women don't have access to feminine hygiene products, they are forced to use products longer than intended, or attempt to make products with materials that are available to them. In addition to being unsanitary, this leads to several physical health risks, including toxic shock syndrome, which is a condition caused by bacteria getting into the body and releasing harmful toxins, infections, all of which can ultimately lead to infertility. Lack of access to feminine hygiene products has also been linked to mental health issues. In 2019, U.S. senators and representatives reintroduced a bill called the Dignity for Incarcerated Women Act, which refers to the need of improved conditions for incarcerated women. Representative Jayapal pointed out that the act, among other things, will ensure that mothers will not have to choose between calling their loved ones or buying a tampon. So why are we here today? Melissa, a formerly incarcerated woman, recalls getting only giant-sized pads that felt like diapers at Carroll County Jail. She was never provided with tampons. The underwear she was issued were stained with urine and blood. During her time at the women's prison, while working in the property department, she was part of a discussion to recycle underwear and work to sort out through the underwear to find the good ones. Angelica, a currently incarcerated female, noted that during her stay at Belknap County Jail, there were times when she did not have enough pads and tampons. Furthermore, she was issued underwear which were contained with bloodstains from other women. Tanya McCormick echoed the reality in Carroll County Jail, stating that she never got tampons and was subjected to wearing stained underwear and sleeping on dirty sheets. During her stay at the women's prison, she would occasionally run out of tampons and ask other women for extras, which lending and borrowing is a disciplinary offense. Natalie recalls her previous experience in Cheshire County Jail as this: you only get a certain amount of tampons depending on which officer in the unit. As a state county resident, you would get used underwears, bras, and socks. The sheets were old with stains. The federal residents were taken care of because liaisons visited once per month to ensure they were getting their needs met. At Grafton County Jail, the issued underwear were also used. When I asked for new ones, I was told, "You're lucky you're getting anything because if it was up to me, you wouldn't get anything." So I choose not to wear any. My sheets were stained with blood, and I were only given pads, not tampons. Merrimack County Jail limited the amount of tampons, and you had to buy them if you needed more. At the prison, they also gave me stained sheets and underwear, and extra tampons were hard to get because not every officer liked you. I will now speak on my experience. Like a lot of the women that I just spoke about, upon arriving at Valley Street Jail, I was given underwear that were clear to the eye, not new, and have been worn because of the stains, tears, and rips in them. I understand you all are probably thinking we must have done something wrong to end up in those places, but we are still human, and we're talking about a basic biological need that should be honored in a dignified manner. I know for me, being at such a young age and going to jail and prison, I was already in a vulnerable state. So I appreciate what you said, Senator Carson, asking about, is it something that has to do with maybe having to ask for them? There was a couple times where I would have to ask the CO for a pad or a tampon, and when I would ask for it, just to hear them say, do you want the stick one or do you want the box one? And that feels very uncomfortable. You're already feeling vulnerable, and to ask a male CO, because most of the time it would be a male CO, it's very uncomfortable. And depending on if you're at the jail or at the jail, there's only usually one officer on the unit. So depending if he's busy or not, sometimes he might forget, or if he likes you or not, you won't get those tampons, or you'll have to wait about 30 minutes, 40 minutes till he comes back to you to get your tampons or pads, or you have to ask him again, which is really uncomfortable. So then I have to go, so to have to go through that is very degrading. With only being issued 3 pairs of underwear and inconsistent supply of feminine hygiene products, these women, including myself, were forced to wash our underwear in the sinks and toilets just because the laundry was done twice a week was not sufficient. Example, the laundry is put into these netted bags that weren't very secure, so 9 out of 10 times, the laundry bags would open up in the laundry, where at that point, women are digging around in the laundry basket trying to find their underwear. Also, let me add that washing garments in the sink and or toilet, also, when the women decide not to wear underwear because of them being stained and worn, you'll be written up and received a disciplinary ticket. Ultimately, this conversation comes down to human dignity. Each one of us deserves, including the women I mentioned previously, and all the women serving time in both state and county facilities should be able to manage bodily functions adequately. This includes proper access to feminine hygiene products. No one should be forced to risk toxic syndrome, infections, or infertility to manage a natural body function. So I encourage all of you to support this essential piece of legislation, SB 209, and continue to serve and protect the dignity of those who menstruate. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Senator Chanley has signed in favor, and our final speaker is Tony Scalambrini. Good morning. Could you introduce yourself and tell us who you represent?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Anthony Scalambrini. I'm a lawyer in Nashua. I've been a lawyer for 18 years. I do criminal work, and I represent victims in civil litigation. I'm here in strong support of this bill. My involvement with this bill came about because of an issue my client had at the youth center in Manchester. My client taught me a lesson about the law, and as a lawyer, that's always the best lessons to learn. She was having difficulty getting various hygiene products, and I went back to my office and did research and discovered that, unlike quite a few states, New Hampshire has no law requiring the provision of feminine hygiene products. Her issue is sorted out, and she's given me permission to talk about that issue with you today. But it points to a problem in the statute. While representing clients in counties and jails and state prison for almost 2 decades, it is hard for people that have not been there to understand what Ophelia talked about and what Senator Carson pointed to. Every interaction in jail is about power. It is about a power dynamic. And when you have to ask the CO for things, that power dynamic comes on clear display. People's cells are inspected regularly. Their shirts must be tucked in. They are ordered when to go to eat. They must ask and get permission to go to the bathroom. Women in this stressful and highly controlled environment should not have to worry about whether or not they have pads and tampons. And it should not have to worry about whether they are treated differently from men because they ask for those things. We don't require men to ask for toilet paper. And because of the situation as it is now, in some places they are forced to navigate these power dynamics to get basic necessities. It is dehumanizing, it is unnecessary, and is constitutionally unequal. Let me be clear that this is not a universal problem. I've worked with Helen Hanks on many issues over the years, and as you've heard today, the Department of Corrections is really a leader in a bunch of different areas, including this one. I've also had experience with Superintendent Brackett's facility, and they do an excellent job. This bill is not targeting them, and hopefully it's not targeting anybody in the state. But some of these facilities, but the difference between the facilities is large. For example, Cheshire County is a jail that doesn't have a representative here today, but I've had many clients there, and it is an excellent, well-run correctional facility. And according to my clients, it has excellent food. I don't think that there are any issues at that facility, but other facilities, including ones in the past, such as the ones that Ophelia had referenced, have had issues with this issue and have had issues getting feminine hygiene products to people that need them. We do not pass laws to memorialize best practices, but to ensure that there is a minimum level of care. Without a statute, women in some facilities, county facilities in particular, are dependent on internal policies and how they are interpreted by a changing array of superintendents. Human decency should not and cannot depend on the personality or whims of a corrections facilities supervisor. Human decency must and should be guaranteed by our state and federal constitution, and this bill helps that effort. Please pass this bill.
Thank you for your
If
testimony.
anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on Senate Bill 209? Commissioner Hanks.
Thank you. I think Attorney Scalabrini brings a good point forward, that this doesn't include the current youth detention facility, and I think there's an opportunity to make sure that those young ladies are also covered by this, and I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to close the hearing on Senate Bill 209. So that's the last of our hearings. I'll accept a motion to go into exec session.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Can we take this one up?
We can take this one up if you'd
Okay.
like. Senator Altshuler will be right back.
Okay, all right. Well, Mr. Chair, would you be amenable to going into just a recess for 5 minutes?
If you'd like to, or if we've got a bill we need to talk about a little bit, we could do that and see. But either, whatever is the preference of the committee. We can take a 5-minute recess if you'd like.
Okay.
to. Give Senator Altshuler a chance to come back, and then we can
Okay.
move into exec.
Okay.
We'll convene at 10:25. You all have the list that I gave you of the remaining bills to be exec. And I did email a list last night of ones that I wanted to exec. My thought was we were not ready to exec 72, 74, or 75. I'd leave those till next week because I know we had amendments that were being worked on. Are you still working with Senator Susie on an amendment 72?
I don't know. We
Because
don't
I
have
have an
one for
amendment to 72, the managed care law.
You do, okay. I thought then, maybe it was not 72, maybe it was 70. Is that, let me roll back to it here.
And if you're waiting for my amendment to 75, I have that, but if it's a different one.
Okay, you have it all drafted?
Well, I talked to my aide who thought we could do what I provided by committee amendment. He thought that was reasonable.
Oh, okay. Okay, then we can,
That works for you.
that was the reason I kept it off because I knew you were working on an amendment.
Okay, so
So-
I think we can do it.
We're not gonna, we're gonna do 67?
We can, I was waiting for Senator Altshuler to get back.
Okay, because what I did was I put together 67, 72, 87,
Yeah, 87, we have to wait.
Yeah.
We have the wrong amendment.
okay, 108, 146, and 204. Those were pretty well,
126, I think we were ready to go too, weren't we?
Yep.
And 130, you had an amendment for, correct? That was Senator Abbas's bill with the sheriff's court
Okay.
officers.
Yeah, the amendment is here.
I've got the, gonna get the New Hampshire Retailers Association too, the awards.
At 11 though, correct?
I'll have to be late, because we've gotta get these.
We gotta get a bunch of these through, but as soon as Senator Altshuler's back, I think we can go through many of these really quickly.
yeah, these I think are,
Here she is.
Is she testifying?
Oh. No, I'm asking. I don't know. I texted her, but I'm not getting an answer, so. I don't know if we're-
Well, listen, we can move through some of these, we just can't put it on consent, and when she comes back, we could always reconsider and put them on consent if we wanted to.
I also have an amendment to 147.
Okay? Well, let's start with Senate Bill 67. Let's go in order so that it doesn't get out of line. I had provided you previously all with an amendment, but I have copies again if you don't have them, if anybody would like them.
I have it.
Okay? Okay. I know we started to discuss this before, Senator Carson. I think you had a concern about,
The documents.
yes, have we addressed your concern on that? There was an email sent for clarification from the Weights and Measures Director, was clarified why they wanted this language in. Did that satisfy your question?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
It's just, you always have to exercise a good degree of caution
Understood?
when people start naming things, because that means at some point down the line, you're gonna have to redo it. It's
Okay.
better that they do it in rules. It's okay.
So I would take a motion to, did we officially go back into exec session? I think, did we vote on it? Okay, and then we recessed. All right, that's what I wanted to make sure. I couldn't remember, I remember us talking about it, and I couldn't remember whether we voted. I wanted to make sure we were officially in exec. All right, so we're good. I will make a motion to move Senate Bill 67 ought to pass. Is there a second? And a second? And then I'd like to offer amendment 2023-0137S. We've had some discussion about this amendment. It changed, I have to go back and refresh my memory what we changed. It's been a while since I looked at it. We removed sections 1, 2, and 4, I believe. And so this would be the bill now, because this,
I think just 2 and 4.
2 and 4, I'm sorry, after section 1, that's correct, that's what we did. So we left section 1 and removed 2 and 4. And this would be the bill now with section 1 plus the amendment, which I believe we had discussion about. The question was on the qualifications that we were referring to in lines 17 through 20, about using the National Conference on Weights and Measures Handbook 105 series pursuant to RSA 438A, Section 4. So you're all happy with the reason that was provided by the Director of Weights and Measures? Any questions on that?
Not for me, and just to clarify, as previously discussed, your amendment removes the sections that we got a lot of testimony about. So there's, in my mind, no controversy left in here
Okay.
after the amendment.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the amendment? Senator Perkins Corcoran did. Yes,
No worries.
that's okay. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then I will move Senate Bill 67 ought to pass as amended with Amendment 2023-0137S. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Carson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Can we wait to move consent until Senator Altshuler gets back? Can we come back to this bill?
I don't think so.
I think we have to take a 5-0 vote, right?
Yeah, we have to take the final vote.
So we can't move consent then, right?
No, because we'd have to, well, you can, no, because you don't have everybody here.
Okay,
So you can't move consent.
okay.
You have it. I've never done.
We can
done it that
reconsider
way.
it, 'cause I have done
You
it.
can reconsider, and then you have to go through the voting all over.
Yep.
Right from the very beginning. This.
For now, just put it, I'll take it out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is not a big deal.
So we're done that one.
Jake, are you here for Senate Bill 44? Yeah. We already did it. Oh, did you? We did it, we passed it with the amendment, the compromise amendment. So that way you don't have to sit here going, what's going on? You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, do you,
What's next?
oh, there's Senator Altshuler right there.
Yay.
Can we move consent now?
Yeah,
We haven't moved on.
okay, I'll move
We only did one bill.
Senate Bill 67.
67, the weights and measure bill. We did the amendment and we took a vote on the bill, but
I'm going to
If you
move
remember,
reconsideration on
this is
Senate
the
Bill
one
67.
There was the
Second?
controversy on the police power, but we removed that. There was the controversy on the technical third-party inspector, we removed that.
So
67
we are going to
was
reconsider so
4-0.
that you can vote on it with us.
And Senator Carson's remaining concern was that intervals language, but she resolved that.
All in favor of reconsidering Senate Bill 67?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chair, I move ought to pass on amendment move ought to pass on the bill.
Second?
We have moved and seconded. You want me to offer the
Remove the
amendment again?
amendment.
You have to say all in favor.
Oh, well, only, are we going to have to go back and re-vote on the amendment? Is that what
We're
you
gonna
want to
Go
do?
back and vote on everything.
We're
Okay.
gonna move the amendment.
Then I'm going to move Amendment 2023-0137S.
And I,
We have a second?
second.
Moved and seconded. Senator Altshuler, we have discussed it. Is there any further questions you had on it?
No, in fact, I wrote my own notes that removing sections 2 and 4, thumbs up.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We're all in it down.
Yeah.
Good, thumbs up, everyone.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll move Senate Bill 67 ought to pass as amended.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll still take it out if you want, since it is my bill.
I move consent.
Yes, we have to do consent.
She moved consent. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of consent? Aye.
That's the reason we
And
did
I'll
all
still
that,
take it.
wasn't it?
Yes.
And I'd like to thank Jenny for her going like this. She knows, she trained me well. That's why I'm like, going, we have to do this, we have to do that,
Yes.
we have to go through this.
Thank you.
Okay, we did
Do
one.
are we ready to move 72 forward? I thought we were waiting for an amendment, so if we're
I
not,
have an amendment.
okay.
Do we
You
happen
should-
to know
you
if
should all
Senator
have an amendment.
Susie has an amendment? Okay.
This is,
All right. We're going to skip that for now because she's going to check with Senator Susie to make sure.
Okay.
72, I thought Senator Susie had an amendment.
okay.
74
We're
we
not
can do.
doing 87
74 we can do if you're ready.
relative.
I had originally held off because I thought we were waiting for an amendment. But If we are ready to go, I'll take it right in order. This is the one you had the amendment for, correct?
No, I have an amendment to 75. I had a question on
75.
74, but I resolved my
Oh, okay.
question. So I'm ready to vote on
Would
it.
you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll move on to pass on 74.
Do we have a second? Moved and seconded. Would you like to, any discussion?
No, I have no discussion.
No.
Well, maybe your question was mine and we can resolve it, you can help me resolve. My question was on page 4, lines 14 through 16. That current employee, if anyone full-time, including full-time, temporary, and seasonal, to complete 12 months initial probationary period, that was a really long probationary period. Which is 90 days.
I feel like we discussed this, and I'm trying, did you
Yeah.
have an answer for that?
I think what they're talking about, because sometimes with seasonal, they only work like 3 or 4 months in the summer, and then they come back 3 or 4 months in the summer, so I think that's how they addressed it, was
Yeah.
that, they didn't work consecutively for the year, but that it gave them time to observe over like a 3-month period, then a 3-month period.
Right, but including full-time, temporary, and seasonal would mean that you can't become a permanent employee until you've completed 3 years of service.
Okay.
If you're seasonal. Is that-
Okay, I got an email from Commissioner Arlington.
I was just looking for it.
Yeah.
If you've got it, that's
Yeah,
printed.
he says, well, this one came, I think it came just, nope, it
Le-
came to the committee.
Yes, it did.
He says, I apologize if this didn't end up going through, meaning the email, but also, I'm sending it again. Anyhow, looking up the question about employees working on a part-time basis, the Division of Personnel proposed taking it out of statute as part of cleanup in which subjects of bargaining contained in either rule or union contract don't also exist. And he said, I confirm there's no practical effect of removing it from the statute.
74.
As such, I hope you keep it in a bill.
Thank you.
Nevertheless,
I'm
should
just
the
reading
committee
this
be
and I'm like,
uncomfortable, we don't have strong feelings about doing this another day and removing the provision. And if he has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. So that's his response.
Senator Perkins Coker, you had an amendment for this bill, right?
I do, Chair. Thank you for
Ah,
knowing
okay.
my own mind better than I do. And Senator Alchell, I don't know, you were here yesterday, right? Did you get a copy of this? Okay.
I also have an amendment to 75.
Okay, so for 74, I've just passed out language that I should make sure Phil has a copy of, so that he can look at it while we're talking about this. So it's, I would be asking for a committee amendment to insert in section 16 of the bill the underlined language in the handout I just passed out, which reads, let's see, it would be inserted on line 22, starting on line 22, after similarly situated current employees, it would read, any such retention step increase shall be subject to collective bargaining requirements pursuant to 273A. And so the intent here is just that we obviously want to encourage the commissioner to retain employees. We obviously want our state employees to receive step increases where equity and retention requires. We just want to make sure that our collective bargaining agreements allow other employees to also receive similar treatment. And so I think inserting this is just a proper procedural piece if the committee agrees.
Do you have another copy of that?
Have you,
Do I?
Did
Yes.
you run this by the commissioner?
Did I run it by the commissioner? No.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'd like to wait until we can actually get this in an amendment form.
You do want
And,
it?
yeah,
Okay.
and run it by the commissioner and see what he has to say.
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Okay.
Senator Carson, you said you had an amendment for 75 all set?
everyone should
Okay,
have
so
gotten
we'd
it
like to
as
take up
well.
75 next.
Let's see. This is relative to the division. It is amendment number 0260.
60? Yeah, okay.
That's about the Personnel Appeals Board.
All right, would you like to make a motion on the bill so we can have a discussion?
Okay, I'd like to move ought to pass.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, and Senator Carson, you have an amendment you'd like to offer?
Yes, I have amendment 0260. And I believe that this language came from the commissioner.
Do we have a second?
Okay, this,
Do we have a second on the amendment?
I'll second it.
Senator General seconds. Senator Carson, would you like to speak to your amendment?
sure, I don't remember if I brought this amendment in during the public hearing?
You did.
Okay, so it came in.
I
Okay.
have it,
Yep. Yep, okay, because there were some issues, and so the commissioner addressed, I believe, those issues in the amendment.
I do remember this.
Yeah, nobody opposed the bill. So,
Any further discussion from the committee on the amendment?
didn't we recess this? And then reopened it with the personnel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was someone named Mr. Major who came, it's in the hearing report. He agreed with the commissioner that there's problems with the board, it has efficiency issues. They'd like to have more autonomy in hiring and staffing. Yeah, and they suggested a fourth concession. He's worked directly, never heard from him. So if there are any issues continuing, I mean, Mr. Chair, I never heard from Mr. Major about whatever issues he had, so we can retain this and I can work on it over the summer. So if, did I move?
Yes, we were working on the amendment itself.
Okay, so I'm gonna withdraw that and I'm gonna make the motion to retain.
Are you able to withdraw your second?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion to retain. Do we have a second? Or re-refer? We're not in the house.
Re-refer, I know.
Second.
I know.
We have a second to re-refer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, move consent.
Consented. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Okay, and I'll do this one.
Okay, so we'll re-refer. That was 75, okay. Yeah, Senate Bill 87, I'm having the correct amendment drafted now because we had an earlier version and I thought I had the right one and I didn't. So we have consensus from all of the stakeholders and so we have an amendment that reflects that, but I just don't have it ready yet. My apologies on that. I had it and I thought I had it drafted and I did not, so. That's the youth camps, yeah. That's currently in OLS being drafted. Senate Bill 105. It's the next one.
Gendro has an amendment too.
Yeah.
Yes, we have one more current than that that's being drafted.
All right, so
This is the,
working with this one at all?
no, there's a new one being drafted. So Senate Bill 105, I met with Senator Rosenwald yesterday, and she is good to move it as forward as is, and I was in agreement, so I told her I'd put it on today's exec sheet, so I will accept the motion.
Okay, I'll comment once the motion's made, I guess, but I think there's been some concerns raised about how this is gonna affect hospitals and their paperwork flow and just sort of complicating administrative burden here. So I don't know. I might appreciate a little more time to maybe talk to Senator Rosenwald.
Would you like to hold off on executing it then?
If you're amenable, Chair.
I am.
Okay, I would.
We'll move it to next week's.
Okay.
I'll put it on the 2/22 schedule.
Thank you, sir.
Certainly. Senate Bill 108 is the next one that I wanted to try and do today. I mean, if you guys, if you're ready to do it today, I didn't know if we were. Yes?
Okay.
Sorry, you don't have my notes on these. You don't have my notes I wrote in the margin, so you're not, yes. That's right. I knew there was a reason we were waiting. We've already done 107, so 108.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
I don't think that one has an amendment.
I mean, 107 has an amendment from Senator
We've already accepted.
Carson. Oh, yeah. Thank
We
you.
did that earlier today.
We'll get through this somehow.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
It'll be much easier next week because we're going to do about half of them today.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get it done. All
Senate
right.
Bill 108. This is Senator Carson's bill, the New Hampshire Public Defender Program and the State Employee Health Insurance Plan.
Yeah, I went and took everything out of order. 130, I probably have it someplace here on the desk.
You have an amendment, Senator Carson?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
there is one. I don't know where it is. I haven't made it, sorry.
This,
I don't know what I did with it.
I wasn't aware of an amendment either.
Yeah, I don't think there is an amendment on Senate Bill 108. This is just relative to the participation in the public defender
Right.
program. It's just moving them over. And in fact, it's gonna be cheaper for the state, which
Right.
is amazing that they pay that. But I know that they're reticent to add more people into the state health care program. But these people work for the state. And they do a constitutionally required job. We have no choice. We have to have a public defender program. I'll tell you, I was a little concerned about the testimony from the department. And quite frankly, the attitude. I don't know if anybody else sensed the kind of attitude that I got from the two people that were here that presented on behalf of the department. Telling us that, well, we don't have enough people to administer this program, I'm sorry, is not an acceptable answer, quite frankly. And this is about recruitment and retention. We know that we have difficulty because we tend not to pay very well. And so if we can balance that out with our very generous state insurance program, healthcare insurance, many of these attorneys are just starting out. They're young, they have young families, young children, and that's really when you need to have that healthcare benefit. So I hope all of you can join me in recommending that we allow the public defenders into our healthcare plan.
Would you like to make a motion?
I thought I did.
Would you-
I'll move on to pass.
Do we have a second?
I had the date, this
Yeah.
act shall take effect after, and they wanted that struck.
they want it pushed out, right?
We could do that as a committee amendment.
Yes.
So
So
we'll-
I'll move on to pass.
do we have a second? Moved and
So-
seconded.
Okay, so we will need a committee amendment, Phil, to push that date out to January 1st, 2025? Or 24?
I didn't write the date down,
I didn't either. I said she just doesn't want to have to cancel her current healthcare plan, and those
She-
usually renew in November.
So what I had it was amend to effective upon passage.
Okay.
That's what I have written in my notes.
Oh, interesting. I had to push it out.
That's why I wish I could find the bill.
That came from
I
Senator
mean,
Carson, actually.
You know how you whenever you find something, look for
I thought
something,
that the
Yeah,
ED of the
problem is
public
we don't have
defender's
those.
office
So I'm looking
asked
at
us to
this
push it
and
out
I'm like,
because
where did
she
it
didn't want to
go?
have to cancel her current Cigna plan because it would come with penalties.
Yeah, this is, you don't have to, there's no penalty because it's a change of department policy or
Oh, okay.
Right.
significant life
No,
change.
I don't have it.
So,
I bet you it's
Here,
on
she
my
had-
desk somewhere.
had a baby in the middle of it and wanted to change the, like how much.
Yeah, the notes I had, Senator Carson, came from you to amend to effective upon passage.
Okay, well, if you're that, then that's what I wrote. I probably have it on my desk,
Okay.
so.
All right.
There's usually a exception for that.
Okay.
Not that I don't know anything.
I guess if we find it's different, we could do it in the floor amendment if we had to, but that's the notes that I had.
Yes.
Okay. No, 60 days.
Yes, yeah. Do you have the right?
Is that an amendment? No?
Senate Bill 108?
108.
Is that one way? Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
Hey, you know what it is? It's so nice outside. Everybody's thinking about, okay, so
So we have a motion about to pass, seconded, and we want to make a committee amendment to make it effective upon passage, not 60 days.
Okay.
Do we have to vote on that as an amendment separately?
yes, because it'll be a committee amendment.
Okay. So we have a motion to change the passage date to effective upon passage?
Yes.
Senator Carson moves it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Gendro. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Senator Carson, you want to move this on to pass as
I
amended?
will move this as on to pass as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Perkins Cloaker. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Move consent.
Do we have a second? Consent's moved?
Second.
Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm happy
Aye.
to take this
Excuse
one
me.
out if,
And Senator
Unless someone
Perkins
else
Cloaker will
wants it.
take it out. All right, so this 108 is done. 126, it will be the next bill we'll do.
And I have an amendment.
You have an
and
amendment?
we have an amendment.
Okay,
Yes. It is amendment number 0542S. So I will move the bill ought to pass as amended.
Well, okay. I think we have to move
well, we have to
Bill,
move
right?
on to pass first.
Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me, ought to pass.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by, excuse me, Senator Perkins Cloaker. Senator Carson wants to offer an amendment.
I think, if I may speak to the amendment, I think the only thing we put in there, and in good standing. I think that's something as this committee starts to really, I mean, we really started a few years ago, really working on reciprocal licensing, that we are aware of the fact that many people are licensed in other states, they might not be working, or they might be in some sort of adjudicative process, that we be very clear that in order to qualify to get a reciprocal license here in New Hampshire, you must be in good standing. You have the license and it's in good standing.
Great.
Senator, would you like to move the amendment?
Yes,
Now that
I
we-
would like to move amendment 0542S.
Seconded by Senator Altshuler. We've had some discussion on it. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Senator Carson, you want to move this?
Yes, I will move ought to pass as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator Gendro. You guys were a tie, so I'm going this way this time. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent.
Consent has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Who would like to take this out? Senator Gendro will take this one out. Okay, Senate Bill 130. I know Senator Carson has an amendment, but we'll
great.
move the OTP first.
Mr. Chair, move ought to pass on Senate Bill 130.
Do we have a second?
Found it.
Seconded by Senator
You
Gendro.
know what? 108 was right in front of me the whole time. It was right here.
It's okay.
Oh, my goodness. I'm like leaving my
I know, that's why I got the window open.
It's the window, it's.
Yeah, I guess
So I can feel the window, but when I was over there yesterday, it was so hot.
if no one has an objection, I'm gonna do the same here.
Feels
Okay,
good.
Senator Carson, do you have your amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move ought to pass on Senate Bill 130.
Do we have copies of that?
You should have.
in your packet that they just handed out.
So, okay, maybe, is this a whole packet of them? Got it. I thought it was all copies of the same one.
See, I'm not the only one.
Nope, there we go. Okay, now I'm with you. Do we have a second? Senator Gendro, second. All right. Senator Carson, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move amendment 0474S ought to pass. This language, this correction language came from the court. they're the ones that had requested that we actually, that we do this bill authorizing police standards and training to develop a court security officer education and training program. And these, I believe this was the amendment. It did come from the court, and I guess it just addresses issues that came up, and I'll leave it at that.
If I may for 1 second,
Sure.
would the committee be opposed to waiting on this bill? I just recall the conversation that I had with the Sheriff's Association yesterday. My apologies. They were meeting this morning on this bill and would like to have an opportunity to weigh in. Would you all be okay with waiting until next week to do this?
I
Yeah.
withdraw my motion.
I also have a comment.
Okay.
Sure.
So I have language that I believe Richard had left with us, and I think the intent was for this red language to be
Right.
added.
But then there was another one that came, and I have it here. He sent me another version.
Okay, okay.
So if we're okay, then we'll wait until next week and give the Sheriff's Association an opportunity, because they are
I
meeting.
have this one too.
Okay.
This is what I got,
All
that's
right.
in the red like everybody else.
Well- Thank,
Okay.
yes.
I did speak to the Rackham County Sheriff too, and he said that he's all for this and that definitely is okay. It's just with the time frame, he felt that taking effect 60 days after its passage, he was unclear, do they have to be certified 60 days after, or do they have 60 days to have a plan in place? So that was a question that he had.
Okay.
Well, it would be, if you don't mind, it's my understanding from, Montague County Chief, considered my police chief, Skippa, Director
Director.
Skippa.
Yes.
Director Skippa, that they have to begin developing the program.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
There's not a program in place yet
Right.
for everybody to go through. Okay. So the courts want, within 60 days, to start putting that program together. And that's what I told Sheriff Stiegler, but he was a little unclear on that.
Okay. Well, we'll wait until next week and give the sheriffs the opportunity to weigh in with any issues or concerns that they may have. Thank you. My apologies on that. I had several people talking to me about several bills, and I guess I missed that one. All right, Senate Bill 146 is the next on the list. Did we? Yes. We did not have an amendment on this one.
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
Zero, you presented it. It's
Oh, yeah, I'm
0337S.
sorry. Yeah. I'll move on to pass on Senate Bill 146.
Second?
Moved and seconded. I'd like to offer amendment 0337S,
Okay.
Which I
Members
got-
of our-
which I gotta remember what it actually did now.
Oh, this board, I guess, meets rarely and does farm tours, so some cleanup. Each meeting shall be advertised.
I'm trying to remember what we changed. Okay,
The commissioner wanted to be excused.
yes, this amendment was on request of the commissioner to change the language. This is one we introduced the day of the hearing. I'm sorry, that's what was,
Replacing all after section 2.
yes.
So it's just a brand new section. Board shall consult with and advise.
Yeah, and we did have testimony about any board member or public may request that the commissioner be excused. We did get testimony
Yes,
on
that's
that,
correct.
why they wanted to do that. And the change was 60 days to effect upon passage.
Correct. That was, that was one other change.
Okay. Yeah.
Any further discussion on the amendment?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then I'll move on to pass as amended with amendment 0337S,
Second?
seconded by Senator Perkins Wolken. Do we have any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent?
Consent moved. Do we have a second?
Second?
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I will take this one out myself. Okay, 147, are we ready?
Amendment for 147.
Okay.
This is relative to the Board of Dental Examiners. The only change, Mr. Chair, I move on to pass on Senate Bill 147.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Senator Perkins Cloaca.
I have an amendment, it's 0476S.
Senator Carson moves the amendment. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Senator General. Senator Carson.
Okay. The only change is in, and from the bill is on page 2, beginning on line 22. It removes the language for the exemption that they exempt dentists who are board eligible or board certified in either dental anesthesiology or oral and maxillofacial surgery from the requirement. And that the requirement is that when you have a dentist performing the procedure, there shall be a dedicated anesthesia provider present to monitor the procedure and recover from the anesthesia. We're talking about people that are having oral surgery or maxillofacial surgery. They're not getting an injection of lidocaine. They're getting something that is actually making them fall asleep. And there should be a second person in that room with them. I think that's a standard practice. Why they wouldn't do that in the dental office is a little beyond me. But I just feel more comfortable not allowing the board to exempt dentists who are eligible and certified in anesthesiology.
Yeah, I think if a patient's sedated, there should be 2 people.
And I
look confused.
I mean, it's just, I think that there's, you know, a definite differential between general anesthesia and deep sedation. So deep
Right.
sedation is what we're speaking about.
Yeah, something like
So,
that, or
I mean, they require to have an additional staff member
Yeah.
who's an anesthesiologist
Yeah.
versus a nurse practitioner.
Mhm.
It's a really big lift.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So in a post-conversation after this, Senator Carson and I had, and I don't recall who the gentleman was that we were speaking with, but I guess it's clear that this is a best management practice anyway, and they never have them alone, you know, a patient alone. But it certainly, I think, I agree with Senator Carson that it concerns me that there's an opportunity that the board could exempt that and make it possible. I'm comfortable with taking this language out.
I mean, to address your concern, Senator Altshuler, are you concerned about essentially like staffing shortages? So, I mean, one way we could address this, and Senator Carson, I don't know if you'd be open to this, but you know, perhaps there are situations in which if the dentist is certified in dental anesthesiology, that the other person present, while still required to be present, could be someone with less certification. But I'm just thinking about workforce issues. I don't know. That might be something we want to hear from people on.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, we're talking about patient safety and safe conditions. So for me, that's primary. I don't want someone to go into a dental office and have this type of surgery done, and there's only one person in the room, and something happens. So I got a phone call from a dentist who's practicing, I believe, out in your district, Senator, and he was very adamant that there should be 2 people in the room at all times. So that's why I'm pushing it. I said that I would address it. I understand the
But if the
workforce
dentist
issues.
is board eligible or certified in dental anesthesiology, and maxillofacial surgery, why can't they make the decision about who they need as their second person? You know, with. Because they are the ones who have
Right,
board
and-
certification and, you know.
You're right, and it-
experience, so if there's
The way that I'm seeing this, Senator, is that they're going to be able to do that. It's just that it's saying you can't be the only person in the room. They can decide who they want else in the room. They just can't exempt They just can't be the only person. Because it says, in addition to the dentist performing, there shall be an anesthesia provider present. What we're really trying to stop is these people who do have either dental anesthesiology or oral and and to exempt them from the requirement of having a second person in the room. So that I think is the part that I got objections about, that there really should be either the dentist or a physician's anesthesiologist or a certified registered nurse, unless if there's a CRN. So it's just not them alone.
Well, I think that ties up smaller practices.
Okay.
Yeah, like some of the practices that, you know, I've had very good experiences using would have to hire more staff with a higher, you know, and have them both have to be present. So you've got two physicians who are, you know, certified in general or general anesthesia or sedation, and now they're both in the same room with a patient, and they can't be working with other patients simultaneously without hiring yet another person with really high qualifications.
So
I just think it jams up a small practice.
yeah, I mean, I'm just offering this in the spirit of sorting this out. I mean, it sounds like Senator Carson's open to, like, if there's someone licensed or certified in anesthesia in the room, so could the language, instead of striking that last sentence, say, you know, in the case of dentists who are board eligible or board certified in either dental anesthesiology or oral maxillofacial surgery.
Oh, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one stumbling over that word.
You know, another staff member must be present, but they need not be an anesthesia provider. I'm just trying to.
That's what the original legislation was exempting.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Okay.
Because we don't, this is not a fiscal note bill, we have until the end of March to do something with this.
So hold off?
So let's hold off on this. I'll reach out to the Board of Dental Examiners and see if there's something else that we can do.
Would you like to withdraw your motion?
I will withdraw my motion.
I don't remember who made the second, but whomever did, would they?
Me neither, but if it was me, I withdraw it.
Okay,
It's often me.
then we will move on.
We already did 149. I don't think 149.
149 is not ready.
Yeah.
203 is not ready. 204.
I would like to move, House Bill, Senate Bill 204.
Moved and seconded. I don't think we need an amendment to this, do we?
Nope.
On this one?
Why?
Well, do you recall what the issue was? My apologies, I don't. Okay, well, then,
Okay. There was no opposition.
my apologies, I guess I
withdraw my
forgot that.
All right.
We're not ready for
We're not 205, right?
We heard 208 today, not ready. We got a whole 209, 210.
210 we can do, yep.
You want to do,
So
205, where I'm sorry, I just turned my page.
that's a COLA adjustment. I don't believe we're ready to exec that yet.
Okay, so now we're to 208?
No, 208 and 9 we're not ready on. 210 is the next
Yeah, I'm
one.
gonna ask if we can hold off on this one. I have a bill, we heard it this Tuesday, in judiciary dealing with privacy, working with Microsoft and other internet provider services. And the lobbyist came to see me and said that there's an intersection between these two, and we gotta try to figure it out.
So would you be comfortable re-referring it back to the committee to keep it here?
I'm fine, yeah, that's fine.
Would you like to make that motion?
I will make the motion to re-refer Senate Bill 210.
Do we have a second?
Well, okay, so did you want to just wait on the bill, Senator Carson, to clear up?
Well, it is a fiscal note bill. We'll get jammed up the week we come back from vacation.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I don't mind just not doing anything with it. I can try to work on it during the vacation week.
I think there's a lot to this bill that needs to be answered, and I'm not completely convinced we need it yet.
Okay.
And that's why I think keeping it in the committee would be a wise choice.
Yeah, let's just give it a little more time because I think that,
Yeah.
I mean, there might be some helpful things here for the commissioner.
Well, re-referring it, we'll keep it in the committee, won't it?
Yeah, it would delay it a year though, right?
Potentially, but there's no, from the testimony received, I didn't understand that there was any urgency on this at all. And there's definitely some things that I just couldn't figure out with it, so if we have a motion to re-refer, I suppose we should have a second before we discuss. I'll second for the purpose of discussion, so that we're now legally in discussion mode, sorry. I'm comfortable re-referring and holding the bill here in the committee, and for the reasons that you just talked about, and there's just a lot of, to me, a lot of things that I'm trying to figure out with it, and from the commissioner's testimony, we weren't able to really put our thumb on a problem that he was having that needed to be resolved right this minute. So I think that it's gonna take me a while to get my head around going further with this bill, and I think keeping it in the committee for another year would not be harmful. Do we have any further discussion? Sorry? All right. Are we ready to vote, or do we want to discuss?
It is Senator Carson's bill. So.
All right. All in favor of re-refer? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent.
Do we have a second for consent?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
And I will do this one.
Senator Carson will take it out. All right, thank you. 211. Here's the next one. 209. Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna.
we're skipping
yeah,
that
we're
one. I'm
gonna-
sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna keep
Yeah,
that one. 'cause
I was scrolling ahead.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
that's right.
will-
That's right. You needed an
I
amendment.
need to get an amendment. for
Got it.
that one. Yeah, because we're gonna include juvenile facilities, so,
Can't we do it as a committee then?
no, because I've gotta talk with
Okay.
the department
We have to get it
HHS
in
to
the
figure
right
out, to get
place.
the correct
Yep.
language.
Yeah.
All right, 211 you have an amendment for.
You have an amendment.
Yes, you have a copy of it, I'm quite sure. That's right here.
Replaces entire bill.
Yes, so this is,
right.
I'll move on to pass
On the,
on 211.
I'll second.
And then I'd like to offer amendment 2023-0524S. This replaces the entire bill. And this is the bill on the background checks for the waste facilities, the ownership. And the amendment removes the onerous portion as of the 10% rule that Director Wimsatt discussed about ownership, where especially was problematic within publicly traded companies, because the owners could be stockholders from anywhere around the world, and getting fingerprints could be a challenge, so.
So this was the amendment you presented at the bill hearing?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
The only question that I have, and I wrote on the amendment, it was too wide of a net, and I think that was based on Director Wimsatt's.
Yes, that was in section 4, the partners
Yeah,
and
and you already
individuals.
took a lot of it out.
Yes,
so,
and,
okay.
and this was the language that the Department of Justice needed, because it was,
Okay.
it was better than key employee, which is current law.
Yeah.
All right. We all set to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yeah. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And I'll move on to pass as amended on 211 with amendment 0524S. Seconded by Senator Gendro. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I'll move consent.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. And I will take this one out. $212, we are not ready to accept. We just heard that. I think that's it for today, guys. Unless anybody has any other bills they want to move forward today for exec.
Okay, I move we come out of executive session. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. And I will adjourn the committee for today. We are done. Thank you all. We moved through that rather expeditiously. So next week, I intend to try and exec the remainder of these if we can. If there's something we need to hold over, then we will, but let's do our best to try and have all of them set to go. The reason I want to do that next week is I want to give you a break from this committee for a couple of weeks.
And we have no hearings next
All
week.
our hearings are done.
Okay.
It's only exec. Yep.
All right, I'll do my homework.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Okay.